Okay, good morning and welcome to Just Daf It. Daf Yevamos here. We are learning Yevamos Daf Vav, number 86. We have a fascinating share for you today. We're going to be talking about Ma'aser Rishon. We haven't really discussed that so much. We discussed Truma a lot. We're talking about both Truma and the rights to eat Ma'aser Rishon. Who's allowed to eat Ma'aser Rishon? Who do you give Ma'aser Rishon to? And Ben Zion will discuss, is there a mitzvah to give Ma'aser Rishon, or does it just belong to certain people and they're allowed to collect that? It just monetarily belongs to certain people and they have the rights to it, but there's no actual mitzvah to separate it and to give it to them. We'll discuss that in Ben Zion, very fundamental principles. Hopefully, we'll be coming out with a new video, a new Glatzit. I recorded it last night with someone who runs a very interesting program, Yisachar Zvulun program, which is a little different than the Kollel system, meaning he hooks up a businessman who's making a lot of money with the Yisachar, with someone who's a very diligent student, a very special Talmud Chacham, not just a regular Avrech who's drinking coffee all day, like Lieberman says. He's actually learning most of the day or all of the day. Hooks them up. He gets them much more than the minimum wage in Israel, much more than the minimum wage in Israel, and for sure a lot more than a kollel stipend, which is less than minimum wage in Israel. It's very interesting and fascinating. Some of this program, where he came up with it, how it works, the particulars of it. So we recorded it last night. Hopefully it'll be coming out today or tomorrow. You're not going to want to miss it. So let's get started. On the bottom of the Mishnah here, and Pehem with Beis on the bottom. It says, Bas Yisrael Muresas Lakohen. Bas Yisrael, the daughter of Yisrael, she's engaged to a Kohen, Muberes Mikohen, or she's pregnant from a Kohen. Either she became pregnant from a Kohen out of wedlock, or she became pregnant once she was married to the Kohen, but the Kohen died now, so she can't eat Truma until the child is born. If she's Muresis the Kohen and Erisin, so Midaraisa we learned she could eat Kinyan Kasbo, she's called Kinyan Kasbo, but Midarabbanan they said she shouldn't eat because she's still in Beis Avia, she's still in her father's house. She's going to give to her brothers and sisters of Yisraelim a Truma, which is a problem. Shomeres Yavam the Kohen, or she was married to a Kohen. The Kohen enabled her to eat. She had no children from him. Her husband, Kohen, died. He has another brother. A Kohen wants to do Yibum. They haven't done Yibum yet. She still can't eat Truma. V'chein Bas Kohen Yisrael. So, but Truma. Similarly, of all these three cases, Bas Kohen, the daughter of a Kohen, she was engaged to a Yisrael, or she was pregnant from a Yisrael, or she was Shomeres Yavam. She was waiting to be engaged to Yisrael. She not able to go back to her father's house and eat. All these cases, she's stuck and she can't eat Truma in any of these cases. Bas Yisrael Mureses a Levi. Let's say a daughter of Yisrael is engaged to a Levi, Muberes mi Levi, or she's pregnant from a Levi, Shomeres Yavam a Levi, or she's waiting for Yibum from a Levi, V'chein Bas Levi Yisrael. The same be of a daughter of a Levi who is in one of these three situations to Yisrael. L'socha a Ma'aser, she can't eat Ma'aser. Bas Levi Mureses l'Kohen. Here's a big chiddush that she's daughter of a Levi and she's engaged to a Kohen. Muberes mi Kohen, Shomeres Yavam l'Kohen. She's basically some halfway attached to a Kohen, either through pregnancy or an Erisin or Shomeres Yibum. V'chein Bas Kohen Levi. Same thing. A daughter of a Kohen is one of these two situations: pregnant, engaged, or waiting Yibum. L'socha lo b'Truma lo Ma'aser. She can't eat Truma and she can't eat Ma'aser. This is a little bit of a chiddush. That she can't eat Ma'aser, and also that she can't eat Truma. In one of the cases, the reason she can't eat Truma is because she's halfway attached to Levia. Levium can eat Truma, but why she can't eat Ma'aser, that is a question we're going to have to get into. So the Gemara says, V'tei Zara, we're asking on this final clause in the Mishnah, even if she's a Yisraelis, the Levia, right, why can't she eat Ma'aser? Why can't she eat Ma'aser? Zara milo achla b'Ma'aser. Ma'aser is given to the Levium, but technically there's no Isra for Yisrael to eat. If a Levi gives some of his Ma'aser produce to Yisrael, he can eat it. There's no Isra. Truma can only eat by Kohanim, by Zarim, but Ma'aser can be eaten by anybody. Amar Rav Nachman Shmuel Hamayim Rav Meir here. Our Mishnah, the author of our Mishnah is Rav Meir. The Amar Ma'aser Rishon also Lazarim. He says Ma'aser Rishon, just like Truma is also the Zarim, Ma'aser Rishon is also the Zarim. Meaning it was not a Levi or a Kohen. A Kohen is a Levi. He's just a special type of Levi. The Tanya Truma, a Kohen, top of Pei Vav and Aleph. Truma, a Kohen, a Ma'aser Rishon, a Levi. Truma is exclusively eaten by Kohanim, and Ma'aser Levi exclusively by Levim. Divrei Meir of Lezer Nazariah Matir, the Kohen. Lezer Nazariah allows a Kohen to eat Ma'aser Rishon. The Gemara says in Michlal, the Ikamad Aser. Of course, every Kohen is also a Levi, so of course the Kohen could eat Truma, could eat Ma'aser. Ela Ema Nosna Af La Kohen. We're going to see on Amud Beis, Lezer Nazariah is a Shita, that technically even with a Raisa, you can give Ma'aser Rishon, you don't have to give it to Levi, you can even give it to a Kohen. It's not dafko for Levim, it's a Raisa, but Lezer Nazariah is a unique Shita. So we're going to get into that on Amud Beis. My time with Rav Meir, what's the reason Rav Meir that says only Levim can eat Ma'aser Rishon? Rav Achav read the Rav Mishmei the Gemara ki es Ma'aser b'nei Yisrael sharim al Hashem Truma. It compares Ma'aser, which is thought in Ma'aser Rishon. Ma'aser Rishon is given 10% of your produce is given to the Levim. Called the Truma, Ma Truma Asur Lazarim, just like Truma compares Ma'aser to Truma, just like Truma is Asur Lazarim, it's forbidden to non-Kohanim. Ma'af Ma'aser Rishon Asur Lazarim, so Ma'aser Rishon is Asur to people who are non-Levim. Ma Truma Chayav and Alav Kmisa v'Chomish, but if we're going to compare them fully, we'd say just like Truma, if a Zar eats them, a Yisrael would eat Truma, or even a Levi would eat Truma. He's Chayav Misa v'Chomish, he's Chayav Misa b'dei Shamayim, and if he eats it unintentionally, he's Chayav to pay not just back the Truma, he has to pay back 1/5 addition, a penalty. Af Ma'aser Chayav and Alav Misa v'Chomish. So if you eat Ma'aser, the wrong person eats it, a Zar eats it, you be Chayav Misa and Chomish. Amar Akro, Mesu Bo Ki Chalu, V'Yasef Chamishos V'Olav. By Truma, it says they'll die if they're Machalit by eating a Zar eats Truma, and he has to pay Yosef Chamishos V'Olav. Bo V'Lo Ma'aser, Gemara Darshan says Bo, only by Truma V'Lo Ma'aser. Olav V'Lo Al Ma'aser, only pay Chomish by Truma, not a Ma'aser. Rabbanan. The Rabbanan argue on Rav Meir, Ma Truma Tovel, how do they do with the Pasuk? Ma Truma Tovel is Ma'aser Rishon, Nami Tovel. The reason the Pasuk compares Ma'aser to Truma is just to tell you that just like Truma, right, if you have a portion of grain that you harvested from your field and you brought it into your house and you did the Gemara Malacha, or maybe even if you didn't bring it to your house, you did the Gemara Malacha, you piled it into a nice pile and you're ready to process it, so now it becomes Chayiv and Trumas and Ma'asros. So it becomes also something called Tevel. Tevel means produce that you have to take Trumas and Ma'asros off and you haven't taken it off yet. So the Torah says you're not allowed to eat Tevel. So the Chiddush, the Rabbanan say, even if you took off Truma from this pile, this pile, but you didn't take off Ma'aser Rishon, that itself makes the pile Tevel, and it's an Isser in the Torah to eat it. The Sanya, like a Rice says, Rabbi Yossi, Omer Yachol, hey Chayav Ela Al Tevel Shalhurim Menu Kol Ikar. You might think when it says you can't eat Tevel in the Torah, there's a pasuk, a lav in the Torah, you eat Tevel. You might think you didn't take it was untouched. You didn't take anything off of it. Hurim Menu Truma Gdola, Hurim Menu Ma'aser Rishon. Let's say you took off Truma Gdola, you didn't take off Ma'aser Rishon, or you took off Ma'aser Rishon, V'lo Ma'aser Sheni. You didn't take off Ma'aser Sheni. Afilu Ma'aser Ani. And even if it was a year of Ma'aser Ani, Ma'aser Sheni is in certain years, and Ma'aser Ani is in certain years. Ma'aser Sheni is in the 3rd and 6th year. Ma'aser Ani 1, 2, 4, 5. Talmud Lomar of Shemitah, Talmud Lomar. It says by Tevel you shouldn't eat it in your gates. It says by Ma'aser Ani, and Ma'aser Ani you eat it in your gates, and people will be full. It's referring to Ma'aser Ani. The pasuk says you can't eat it, you can't do it, so you can't eat it. So it comes to include even Ma'aser Ani. Even if you took out everything, you just didn't go of Ma'aser Ani, it's still usher to eat it. If it was just from that drasha Rabbi Yossi, hava mina lav. I'm going to say it's a lav to eat tevel. Misa lo, but how do you know you get misa b'dei shamayim if I eat what? So it's my colleague's Rishon over here. The reason I'm introducing this is because it's relevant to you and Ben Sion, but the Archkol explains in the footnotes that basically any type of tevel, even if you didn't take off Ma'aser Ani, you'd be chayiv misa also. Kamash Malan, that's why you have the pasuk. The pasuk teaches me that calls Ma'aser Truma to tell me all of these things, including Ma'aser Ani. You'd be chayiv misa b'dei shamayim. If you eat the tevel, even just taking that you took off everything except Ma'aser Ani, you'd be chayiv misa b'dei shamayim for eating it. That's what the Rabbana would hold. And even Ben Sion, I'm going to prove only Ma'aser Rishon, not the other Ma'aser. Kamash Malan, Lishnachrin, another way of saying this Ma'aser Rishon, the Tavil, Mid Rabbi Yossi Nafka. Ma'aser Rishon that makes something tevel, we don't have a Yossi, right? So how does that prove? We learned that Ma'aser is compared to Truma. Why do you need a pasuk that compares Ma'aser to Truma? We learn Rabbi Yossi that Ma'aser is compared to Truma and makes the whole Crete, the whole pile tevel. Whereas I would think only the lab. Al misa lo kamashma. And this lishna actually is more mashma. That the whole chiddush of calling Ma'aser Truma is only relevant to Ma'aser Rishon. Michael Kimta Kura Meir. How do we establish our Mishnah? Kura Meir. Ema Sefer. Let's say the end of the Mishnah. Bas Levi Meres the Kohen. Bas Kohen Levi. Right? The daughter of a Levi, she's engaged to a Kohen. And the daughter of a Kohen is engaged to a Levi. Lo tocha lo b'truma lo Ma'aser. Haka Ma'izara Zika. Right? Either whether she's a Bas Kohen or a Bas Levi. Right? Why can't she eat Ma'aser? She's a Levi or Kahuna. Why can't she at least Ma'aser she could eat? Amar Sheshes ma'eno cheles kasani eno says it's just literal. Doesn't mean she can't eat. That means she could eat. It means she can't separate from the Ma'aser Rishon. Right? All the Ma'aser Rishon is not ready to eat right away. You have to actually separate another thing called Truma's Ma'aser and give that to the Kohanim also. Truma Gdoli give to the Kohanim, which is like Chazal recommend 1/50th of the portion, 2%. Some are generous, give 1/40th. Some not generous, give 1/60th. Let's recommend 2%. Technically, midoraisa, the Gemara we hold midoraisa afilu chita achas pateras kol akri. Even one wheat stalk and a huge wheat stalk is good enough, suffices for shumak dilo midoraisa. The Rabbanan they said you should give at least 1/50 to 2%. And then out of the Ma'aser Rishon, the Levi is supposed to take Shumas Ma'aser, which I believe also is 1/10. Ma'aser min Ma'aser, he's supposed to take 1/10 out of that and give that to the Kohen also. So the woman, she's allowed to eat Ma'aser Rishon, the wife, the Kohen, or the wife of the Levi, engaged to them, but she has to take off Shumas Ma'aser. In order to take off Truma, you need to be a Kahuna. You need to be in the Kahuna, in the Shpachas Kahuna. So that means she can't appoint an officer, and also it means she can't. In order to appoint an officer, it means you have to be able to take it off yourself. An emissary to take it off. It also means you have to be able to take it off yourself. She can't do that. So it implies that if she was technically married, fully married, that she could appoint an emissary or take off the Trumas Ma'aser herself. And it's true about Tanya. She eat it in your any place by Ma'aser, you in your house. It teaches you about a Bas Yisrael, meaning even a daughter of Yisrael is married to a Kohen, that she could take off. Trumas Ma'aser or take off Truma Gedola. You might think she has the ability to take off Truma, or maybe it only means she gets to eat it. To eat Truma. Amar Truma Chamuro Cheles. If she's married to a Kohen, she can eat Truma. Ma'aser Akal Kol. She can eat Ma'aser. El Limit Al Nesu Bas Yisrael. Shon teaches that she's Bas Yisrael is married to a Levi, right? So she has permission to take off the Trumas Ma'aser out of the Ma'aser Rishon and make the Ma'aser Rishon available to eat her, because technically, if you didn't take off Trumas Ma'aser, the Ma'aser Rishon is considered tevel, and we have misa probably on it. Mar Brei Rav Amar Lomar She'en Chokin La Ma'aser Be'Sarganos. Mar Brei Ravina is a different way of explaining the Seifa of our Mishnah, which seems to say that a Leviah engaged to a Kohen and a Koheneth engaged to a Levi, they're not allowed to eat the Ma'aser. All it means to say, of course, I could eat it. Lomar She'en Chokin La Ma'aser Be'Sarganos. It means she goes to the threshing floor to collect Ma'aser. She can't collect from the Sarganos. It's machlokes why she can't collect it. If you say it's because yichud, it's seclusion, it's a secluded place, they might come to have intimacy. So it's a problem. If he'll tell me there's a second reason, because she might end up getting divorced, and by the time she's divorced, she's no longer entitled to this ma'aser, to this truma. If she's a grusha who's the daughter of a Levi, right? She doesn't need a ma'aser. The Gemara says, first of all, what do you mean? Even if she's a grusha, why can't she eat? She could eat. She could go back to her father's house. She could be a Leviah. She could get the ma'aser. So the Gemara says, a grusha who's daughter of a Kohen, she could also eat truma. We know for the Bas Kohen, she can't collect on the threshing floor according to this. Gzeira mishum grusha Bas Yisrael. It's all gzeira because of the Bas Yisrael who's married to a Kohen or married to a Levi. She can't collect because maybe he'll divorce her and she has no rights to the ma'aser or the truma. So it's all one big gzeira. Ihaki ma'ir yamureses. Why does the Mishnah say dafka she's engaged? I feel in Nesua Nami. If she's married, we should be choser. He's Megari, sure, and she's no longer entitled. So the Gemara says it's true. I do Tana Reishim Merez, Tana Nami Seifa Merez. Really, it could have said in the Seifa Nesua to tell you that she can't collect in the Beis HaGranos. But because it says in Mureses, which is very relevant in the beginning of our Mishnah, where it's only engaged if she was Nesua, she'd be entitled to Truma and Meiser. So therefore, this says Mureses in the Seifa. Tana Rabbanan. Truma Kohen Meiser Rishon Levi. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Truma goes to the Kohen. Meiser Rishon goes to the Levi. According to Rabbi Akiva, Elazar and Azariah. We're going to find that it was a Kohen. Omer, top of Kevav and Beis. Omer the Kohen. He says no. Meiser Rishon goes to the Kohen. There's the Kohen of Levi, and the pasuk says it goes to the Levi. It's not going to. How could he argue? Say it only goes to the Kohen, to the Levi. Ema af the Kohen. Elazar and Azariah holds you can give it or to the Levi or to a Kohen. Midoraisa. My time with Rabbi Akiva. What's Rabbi Akiva's reasoning? The Siv. Ve'ala halavim tedaber va'amart aleim. You should speak to the Leviim and tell them to get Ma'aser Rishon. The Leviim kamish da'ikra. So Leviim only. Ve'idach le'Ezra and Azariah. Halakri Yeshua ben Levi. Like Yeshua ben Levi, Damar Yeshua ben Levi. Be'esher ma'arim makomos nikra kohanim Leviim. There's 24 times in the Torah where it's referenced to only Kohanim and it calls them Leviim anyway. One of the psukim is about Kohanim Leviim b'nei tzadok. Right? It calls the Kohanim and it calls them Leviim. So therefore, even though it says Leviim, you get the Leviim, it includes Kohanim also because a lot of times Kohanim are referred to as Leviim in the Torah. Rabbi Kiva Hakal Umatzah Amras. Here, by getting Ma'aser Rishon, you can't say it refers to even Kohanim. It says that Ma'aser Rishon you should be able to eat it in every place. It can't be Ma'aser Rishon goes to a Kohen because it says you have to be able to eat it in any place, and a Kohen can't go into Beis HaKvaros, right? He can't go to a cemetery because he can't contract Tumas HaMeis. So therefore, he can't eat at any place. It must be referring only to the Leviim who can go into a cemetery. Ida, what does relative and Azariah do with this pasta? Kol heicha de bayi lo bayi choma avi achale betumas haguf lalaki. All it means to say is that he could eat in any place, as opposed to, for example, Ma'aser Sheni, he has to be in Yerushalayim. He doesn't have to eat this in Yerushalayim. And also, it means that if he wants to eat it, he can eat it while he's tameh. He can eat it while he's tameh, even if he's tameh. It doesn't mean to restrict. It doesn't mean to say he has to be able to go into every place. It just means he can eat it in any situation outside of Yerushalayim, even if he's tameh, tumas guf. There's no isser to eat Ma'aser Rishon when you're tameh, tumas guf. There's no problem with that. You don't get malk. So hey, Ginta, there was a certain incident, a garden, to have a shakar of Elazar and Azariah Ma'aser Rishon. He was a Kohen. He used to take Ma'aser Rishon. He used to collect it himself because he held you could even give it to the Kohanim. Azar Rabbi Kiva, Hadri lePischa leBeikvar Kavre. Kiva was not happy about this. He argued on Elazar and Azariah. He didn't want it to take. He felt it only goes to the Leviim, not to the Kohanim. So therefore, he closed up the garden. It wasn't his garden, and the only entrance to the garden was through a cemetery. Elazar and Azariah was a Kohen. He couldn't go into the cemetery. Amar Akiva b'tarmila v'anachaya. He was a little angry at Rabbi Akiva. He says, Akiva, you used to be a shepherd, and you used to, b'tarmilo, you used to have a leather sack to keep your bread in that you subsisted on the whole day. I'm a rich guy, anachai. You came from poverty. I'm a rich Kohen. I'll survive if you did this to me. I mean, nothing I can do about it. I can't go to the Beis HaKvaros, but I'll live. He was disparaging. He wasn't happy with what he did. Itmar b'pnei ma'kansul Leviim b'maiser. Now we find out the truth that after Ezra came up from Bavel, the Leviim, this means they're Rabbanon, even though they technically would have a right to either exclusively Meiser, according to Ezra and Azariah Midoraisa, so they could also get Meiser. They were constant, they had a penalty, and they penalized, they shouldn't be able to get Meiser. Pligiba Rabbi Yonasan v'Sabia. The Rabbi Yonasan and the elders had a machlokes. Charamar shlo alav me'Ezra. They were penalized because they didn't come back from Bavel in the time of Ezra. The reason they were penalized is that it wasn't so much what they did, it was just because Kohanim, if they don't get Ma'aser Rishon, then they're not going to have what to eat when they're tameh. They can't eat Truma when they're tameh. So let them have at least Ma'aser Rishon they can eat when they're tameh. So the Rashbishlam, that's why they gave him a knas. Because we care about the Kohanim having what to eat, we constantly Leviim. The Torah says, give it to the Leviim. How can you take it away from them? Midoraisa we're talking. The Torah says Leviim get it. We're going according to Rabbi Akiva over here. The Raisa only Leviim get it. Everyone agrees they did something wrong and they were penalized for not coming out Me'ezra. What are they arguing about? The person that says, one opinion says um, that and they're penalized, and who do they say to give it to? Give it to Aniyim, and not specifically Aniyim the Kohanim, Aniyim the Yisraelim. Most people are Yisraelim. Another opinion says no, that Kohanim, since they have nothing to eat when they're Tameh, so they're really called Aniyim. Give it to the Kohanim, those two are the people that you should be giving it to, because they're also Aniyim, and they're nothing to eat when they're Tameh. So the Marz Bishlam Amar Knas Aniyim Mishum Hachi Ahadri Rabbi Akiva LaPischa LeBeikvari. Rabbi Akiva, who lived after the Knas, right? He lived way after Yemei Ezra. Yemei Ezra was before Bayis Sheni. That's why Rabbi Akiva lived after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, second Beis HaMikdash. That's why Rabbi Akiva didn't want him to get. According to the Mandamar of Yonasan and Sabia and the elders at Machlokas, one of them said that the Kohanim should get it. So why did he force Eliezer and Azariah not to be able to take it? He's entitled to it. This is what Rabbi Akiva meant to say to Rabbi Eliezer. If you hold like me, the Midoraisa Levim don't get it. It's only Midorabanan they get it because of the Knas. You can come take. But I know you're coming to take it with Torah's Chaluka. Midoraisa, like you said, that Levim are called Kohanim in 24 places, that they're also entitled Midoraisa to Ma'aser Rishon Leislach. You can't do that because you're ruining the Torah. Minalan, so now it goes back to the discussion. They penalized them. How do you know the Levium didn't come up time of Ezra? The Chsiv that Kabsim al Nar Haba El Ehu. I gathered the people next to the river. V'nasna Sham Nachna Sham Yam Shlosha. We rested there for 3 days. Avina Ba'am. I looked into the people of Kohanim, and they had Kohanim there. Bnei Levi Lamatzis Masad Sham. I couldn't find regular Levium there. Amar of Chesed B'Tchila Yom Amidim Shotrim Elam and Levium. Chesed says originally, time of the Beis HaMikdash, the police officers were only Levim. That's what the job they gave. Akshav, nowadays, only the police officers are from Yisrael. People, there's a big group to select for police officers. It's only Yisrael, and most of Klal Yisrael is Yisraelim, not Levim. So we see nowadays they don't get the job anymore. Maybe that's part of the Knas also. They didn't come in Ezra. They don't get the job as police officers anymore. I don't know if it's a great job to be a police officer, but I guess you get good pension. Coming up, that's the end of today's shir. Coming up, we're going to discuss more. There's a problem over here. How could they take away, if there's a mitzvah to give Ma'aser Rishon, right? According to the opinion that it was a knas. So as an Azariah holds midaraisa, the Kohanim are entitled to Ma'aser Rishon. But if you hold the Rabbi Akiva that midaraisa only Levim are entitled, how? Because the knas of Ezra, they took away their Oker Davim and Torah, the mitzvah to give Ma'aser Rishon to Levim midaraisa, and they took it away. They said you can only give to Kohanim, or even only give to the Aniyim. Still, they took the mitzvah of Ma'aser Ani and they removed it. When we say Oker Davim and Torah b'Shev al Tasa, you can tell not to do a mitzvah, but to do a mitzvah and to change the mitzvah to give to somebody else. How could you do that? We're going to answer that in Ben Sion coming up right now.